Okay, welcome to our latest interview with a key figure in the drinks industry. So I'm very pleased to welcome Andrew Bewes, Managing Director of Hallgarten Novum Wines. So hi Andrew, how are you?
I'm well, thanks Richard. How are you doing?
I'm fine, thank you. You look like you're in the middle of France, but I think you're actually only the other side of Wandsworth Common to me, aren't you? The Clapham Common.
It looks can be very deceptive. Very deceptive. I think it's Tuscany actually, but who's counting?
We can't go to Tuscany. At least we can imagine we are there. So how are things with yourself and lockdown?
That'd be nice. Just need a glass in hand.
Indeed. So how are things been going?
Well,
then?
it's been. Okay, this is the connection's really bad now. Things have been going as well as can be expected, to use an overused phrase. And clearly, when lockdown looked imminent, we took measures to work from home. So by the time we got to the 23rd, the whole business was able to operate without an office, which is great. And everyone is well, I'm pleased to say. But clearly we lost overnight pretty well 98% of our on-trade, which accounts for 75% of our turnover. So a massive hit.
Yeah, of course. And in terms of when you were before going into lockdown, there been a slowdown, hadn't there, really, beforehand as well for the previous month ago?
Yeah, we saw a bit of a slowdown, and there were certainly signs. It was rather like watching a film, I think, with us watching what was going on the other side of the world or on cruise liners. And I think as a nation, we probably just didn't quite up to it fast enough. But no, we certainly saw, probably coinciding with the Prime Minister advising people not to go out. So a week before lockdown, the writing was certainly on the wall. Our turnover was down, and that's why we took the steps to make sure that we could run the business seamlessly from externally located.
So what have you actually been able to do then? What practical steps have you taken? Like I guess you've furloughed quite a lot of staff, have you? Or what's been the steps you have?
Yes, yes, we furloughed. We have furloughed around 65% of the business, which I guess reflects what level of our overhead really is targeted at the on-trade. I think furlough has been a tough one for anyone furloughed. It's sort of counterintuitive to be paid and not be able to contribute. I think that's hit people very hard, but lots of them have done charity work, and we had a variety of ways of keeping in touch, weekly Zoom meetings, quizzes, and just keeping them in touch with what's going on. So I think they all feel included. But no, we're now looking forward to furlough, which will allow us to, which is good news. And I guess 25% of our business doesn't sit with the on-trade, and that is gone through, as with so many of our competitors, gone through something of a boom period. Our relationships across the indie sector have really blossomed, and sales with there's obviously more of a time lag with the grocers, but and Majestic, but that they've been going very well too. So the question everyone asks is whether it's enough to make up for the on-trade, and the simple answer to that is no, it's not. But it's very nice to have, and we value it very highly.
So in terms of balancing all out there, in terms of having obviously saving quite a lot of your overhead with the furlough scheme and the retail sales, I mean, coming out of all this, potentially the on-trade does come back within the next month, or at least parts of the on-trade might come back within the next month. I mean, how do you sort of see things going forward over the next few months then in terms of the business overall?
Well, it all really depends on how successfully the on-trade are able to come back. And as things stand, with lots of talk about reducing to 1 meter social distancing, but no action as yet. I think a lot rides on that in terms of having a manageable set of circumstances for, we've obviously tried to second guess and model out how recovery might look. Is there going to be a Christmas? All of those factors really have a lot to play in that. The furloughed support is great, but we've been topping up to 100% of salary. So very roughly, furlough covers a third of our payroll. So we've been taking quite a hit each month. But no, every additional sale to us from a relatively small base, but that certainly helps. So it's a combination of factors, and I think we feel that there is an appetite for people to go and eat out, but we really do have to wait and see exactly how that will manifest itself. And I guess the big fear we all have, on a personal and on our business front, is a second wave. You only have to be a semi-historian to look back in history and see what second waves do. Spanish flus being the prime example, but very often that can be much more aggressive than the first.
Yeah, and I guess that's the dilemma for the trade, really, isn't it? Because on the one hand, there's this obvious desire for the on-trade to come back, but then I guess there's always that concern that if we come back 2-3 weeks earlier than we need to, or then it might make things work in the long term. So it's sort of like kind of balance between coming now or waiting.
Yes, no, absolutely. And we're very fortunate that as a business we can operate with social distancing and all the other precautions that certainly you need to take in an office environment. We've got a lot of space around us, and we've proven that we can work from home very well. So we won't click over to everyone suddenly going back into the office. And of course, half of our business is field-based anyway. So advising sales teams as to how they should operate and whether they should be using public transport, etc. Certainly within London is a challenge, and just how much our customers will want to see field sales people is a good question. I think we're getting a picture now of what we will need to be doing for our customers as they emerge, and there are lots of things there, but only the sort of overriding theme seems to be probably a reduced wine list, probably a reduced food offering as well on the other side, which means that our sales team and our design team will be working pretty flat out to help out on that side. Some mixed messaging about the need for training, but we're doing a lot of training online at the moment, which is both exciting and challenging. No, we're getting increasing amount of feedback from our core customer base as to what their plans are in terms of when they want to reopen, and what they need from us.
Okay.
And in general, those relationships really are coming to the fore now, and clearly a lot of our restaurant customers have been challenged in terms of ability to pay, but communications kept up very well, and 90% I would say have made either payments on account or at least engaged, and we have plans in place as to how we're going to manage that. So very mature approach, and I think they realize just how devastating this is, not only for them but for their suppliers too.
So and in terms of does that give you, as a sort of business owner, the kind of the dilemma of how much resource and time that you're putting into obviously keeping the off-trade sales going, and how much time and resource you're putting towards an on-trade recovery, which may not actually happen? Is that
absolutely. For us, the big this is now been addressed, but the big problem for us was July, when we all faced, our customers, us, and we as suppliers faced the cliff edge of taking someone off furlough and losing all support, and not knowing how much resource we would need. The fact that flexi furlough has been brought forward to July means that we and our customers can bring people back on a number of hours. So if you take design as an example, we don't need 3 full-time designers that are able to work for a percentage of their time, which reflects the amount of demand there is for them, is much more sensible. And the same with the sales team as well. Ordinarily, sales teams will be out there prospecting for new business. We see 95% of the challenge at the moment is helping existing customers come back online. So, and that's probably not a 5-day-a-week challenge for the sales team. So we see serious advantages for utilizing the flexibility that the scheme will enter into on July 1.
Okay, you mentioned training there. Well, what kind of training have you been able to do? Is that sort of around?
Well, it's largely internal thus far. We're just rolling it out to a bit of external, but internally, the one thing that furloughed staff are able to do is participating in product training and in training in general. So furthering their knowledge, education, or okay. So that's good, and we have a very good team of buyers, but other areas of business who are able to do that, and we've got a lot of winemakers involved in that as well. So that's kept interest and kept people on message, I guess. On the customer side, we're looking at online solutions that will allow them to take staff back on and maybe have some refresher on
I guess
how they might manage, and that is going to. Say again, sorry.
So in terms of just going on to the smaller wine ranges, I mean, have they you've got sort of an idea around what that looks like in terms of, is that around price point? Is that around targeting the main varieties, or what
well,
is it?
It's interesting. I was discussing this with somebody else the other day, and the danger that I think anyone who's wine oriented would share is that it just reduces down to lowest common denominator of sort of must-haves, and which would center around key varietals or key wines. We'd certainly counsel against that. Of course, people want to have some accessible wines, but I think there's going to be. We're trying to second guess who might be the most adventurous in terms of coming back to eating and drinking out. And almost inevitably you reach the conclusion that that's going to be the more adventurous of the consumer spectrum. And I think to take away the different would be very sad. So I think maybe it's an opportunity to reduce the number of entry-level wines and actually just have a sort of nice little ladder going up, allowing people to experiment and to spend a bit more money. And one's got to semi-conclude that certainly for once you move above casual dining in terms of an arena, then people will be looking for that experience, and actually probably relying more on the food and the drink for the experience than the ambience or the the coziness, because a lot of that is going to be I find it stimulating and fascinating, albeit the stakes are high, because it's a lot of livelihoods involved.
Yeah, and I guess you've got that sort of dilemma, haven't you, as well, in the way that the off-trade has been working. It seems that the big grocers are relying more on the bigger brands and the more stable pricing, whereas in the independents, from what I understand, there's been this. I mean, have you seen that as well? Have you seen a real kind of, from the independent side, a real thirst or an opportunity to help people trade up?
Yeah, I think so. I think so often we relate tasting in store or perhaps even in restaurants, and then taking it into the indies with sales, or that face-to-face contact that people say want a bit of advice and they can be pointed in different directions. I think we sort of crossed something of a Rubicon, the public has, in terms of accepting online or remote ordering over the phone or email, internet. So I think there are some advantages. I'm sure that will carry on into the future. And certainly, I think a lot of indies have almost been overwhelmed in some cases. Certainly those early weeks when you couldn't
exactly.
get into a supermarket, and when you did, the shelves were empty. And that's, I think, probably helped the C sector, the convenience sector, as an opportunity for people to buy, and they've spent pretty good money. So we've seen. We haven't seen a massive surge in entry level sales to the independents. It's been solid, sub 20 certainly, but between 10 and 20 quid has been a bit of the sweet spot, and some really interesting surges. So for a restaurant, Greek wine is perhaps still in the eclectic area. For independents, it's been very much a core area of interest, and that goes for many other areas as well.
Do you look at this this time as an opportunity to also look around the country? Because obviously, so much of the on-trade is focused around London, but when we do come back, I guess we're going to see a lot of differences regionally, aren't we? Because of the nature of what we're in. I mean, do you see that potential way of seeing some growth in different parts of the country?
I think we've been national for so long now. It's probably we're probably not the right person to ask. And certainly, there's our regional business is 60% of our on-trade sales. That leaves London being a very large 40%, and certainly by value. But there are different dynamics. So in general, and it's a sweeping statement, but in general, in London, of course, we do have some 100% supply accounts, but in general, it's hand-to-hand combat, fighting with other merchants on almost a line-by-line basis. That sounds a bit more dramatic than it probably is, but most restaurants would have 2 or 3, maybe 5 suppliers, if not more. There's a broader relationship, and it's which is based on the practicalities of getting enough for minimum orders, etc. But in general, most of our business outside London is sole supply. So, and they are there's a longer gestation period there in terms of winning new business. But certainly, we see outside space as being a premium for this year. And so I think that's interesting, and frankly, none of us really know just what appetite there is for for restaurants to really look at their suppliers. They just want to open again, and they've got so many other things on their agenda that actually negotiating and changing wine supplier or meat supplier is probably going to be a little way down their list. That's not to take for granted that we will keep everything we had before.
Yeah, but slightly less time needed to be continuously tendering and pitching for new business potentially.
Yeah, well, there will always be a need, and there's no doubt that a lot of our customers, there will be a swathe of our customers who won't come out of this successfully, and I think we're all facing up to that reality, and it's that's why furlough has been so important, and actually the shape of reopening is absolutely fundamental. So we're not taking anything for granted, but realistically, we're going to have to work very hard, I think, in those first sort of 4 to 6 weeks, helping customers get back up and running. I suspect our year will be slightly turned around in terms of once they've got their list sorted on reopening, the likelihood that they will want to come back and revisit it for Christmas, as they might normally do in September, October, is pretty low. But that really depends on how we come back.
Yeah. Okay. So in terms of bringing back your the team that you have furloughed, is that a case as well of you having to see how it works in
Yeah.
June, July, and just taking it time week by week, I suppose?
Yeah, no, we will try and maintain the level of furlough right the way through to the end of June. And clearly, if we need to bring people back before then, we will. And that's really just playing by the furlough rules. And then as soon as we get to July 1st, we will have a look at and see who needs to be back. There will be front-facing, the first people out, I guess, will be the front-facing end of the team, sales and marketing. But I certainly won't all come back at full on a full-time basis. I think we'll ease it up as we need people in customer services. That will be 100% volume related as orders start to come back. And actually the flexi furlough scheme might allow us to have more people working in customer services on a Monday, Tuesday than on a Thursday, Friday. So the flexibility there should be useful to us. So people in place where the demand is.
And just looking in terms of like going forward, I mean, is it too early for you to sort of start assessing, your own business, as in, do you have too much in one side of the fence based on what's happened? Do you look at this and say, well, this is a complete one-off, once in a lifetime situation, and why change a whole business? Or is I don't know where
it's a really good question. I think again, if we look back into history, it took the UK Ontrade about 2.5 years to recover from Spanish flu. That was also recovering from a war. So it is not necessarily a direct comparison, and the Ontrade will come back, and the Ontrade, we have it in our DNA. So ultimately, we believe that restaurants will go back to something approaching normality, but there's no doubt there will be a shake-up, and arguably we're in oversupply coming out of 2019 and into 2020, certainly perhaps within the casual dining area, but so a lot of that will be sorted out. And we never tried to have a set percentage of business in any sector. We'd like to see our sales in the off-trade grow, and they are growing very rapidly this year. We don't see that dropping back too much within the next year, and we'd like to rebuild our business with restaurants. I think more pertinently, restaurants are going to be looking for more resilience in their business models, and we have to make sure that we're geared for that. I suspect, just as they over the last few years, they've dialed into or zeroed in on the Deliveroo, Uber Eats, etc. For home delivery. You could see them having an appetite for having a bit of a home drinking market as well, where they've built a trusted relationship with consumers. That's something we've been thinking about quite deeply. So I think and there are certainly relatively, in terms of modus operandi, there are certainly benefits that have come to the fore during this period. And we're using one of them, I guess. I think we will change. Almost everyone will change the way they approach their business challenges coming out of this. Certainly using online meeting forums to more effect, and that could go through to trading and other areas. How we manage our time. Expectations to work from home, all those sorts of things, I think will have something to play as we come out of this. But fundamentally, and the question of whether we should be going direct to consumer is a big question in there, and we thought long and hard about that, as we do from time to time, but particularly in this period. And we very definitely decided that our long-term position should not change, and we're a trade supplier. Our business is to support our trade customers and not to compete with them. So So from that point of view, we made a very firm affirmation of
Yeah.
our current stance, which is we don't supply the public. And I fully respect those ones of our competitors who have decided to go direct to consumer, but there will be, whether, I suppose the important part of that will be whether they stop doing that when restaurants reopen, or whether they have decided that actually, their business model has changed, and it's perfectly valid to change one's business model.
Yeah, I mean, it puts that fascinating from the point of view that I guess, as you say, it's so early in the whole process to know how much the restaurants themselves' mindsets may have changed around that channel management thing as well. They may have noted the fact that for the suppliers to be in business, they may have had to have made those decisions. So I suppose that will evolve over the coming.
Yes, I think interestingly, the Ontrade have been very relaxed about it, and they fully understand that a business that's geared up to almost solely to supply them, they need another income stream. I think actually it's the independents who see it as more of a challenge to their business model, and rightly so, I suppose, on one level. No, and each to their own. I think ultimately we all have to be able to look at our business model and make sure that it stacks up for the majority of the people you're aiming at selling to.
Yeah, and I guess you mentioned there the home delivery for the home experience for restaurants, because obviously they haven't really been able to capitalize on this whole tasting and doing tastings and all the independents have been able to do. So there may well be a big role for people like yourselves to help restaurants actually do those kind of things and have in-home tastings of restaurants experiences. If you understand.
Yeah, it's interesting. I was reading in the press earlier on today about Deliveroo running a controlled experiment in London. I think with one of I can't remember which producer it was with. I think one of the Aussies, but I think it's an interesting area, because on one level the consumer is geared up to immediacy. They've geared up to Deliveroo, order, get it within the hour. And it's quite difficult. Yes, a bottle of wine can be added to that, either potentially by the carrier or by the restaurant. I think we've probably been, it's very difficult to gear up for that as a trade supplier built on large-ish deliveries. I think there's probably more. I guess I mentioned earlier on restaurants wanting more resilience, and I think and it's probably only a certain type of restaurant or a style of restaurant, but where they are building a broader relationship than just opening the door when they get to the front door and giving them a nice meal. Where there's communications and marketing and a sense of engagement, that's potentially where we see opportunities for a wine club or sort of wine supplies. And I think we've all become across the industry quite adept at organising tasting. So a tasting pack going out to consumers, and then a pre-organised time for a Zoom webinar or whatever forum you're on. And you can see that sort of thing working around restaurants too. So we've just launched. We share, and we're the sole supplier to Ascot Racecourse, and with Royal Ascot fast approaching, we got together with them and have facilitated a wine club for Ascot Racecourse, and so that's and they communicate with into the hundreds of thousands of consumers who are regular racegoers, from box holders to ordinary punters, so in 3 short weeks we've set up a transactional website for them, and sourced out all the logistics, so it's all fairly seamless. Their members or database come to us virtually via the website, and then we fulfill for Ascot over the following couple of days. So, and that's been a really interesting experience, and certainly it's tested some of our backroom chaps in terms of getting the IT sorted and linking in with LCB and with Yodel and all the various elements. But actually, the ability to fulfill on behalf of a customer is a really interesting area. And as you know, I think one of the things which is going to be here to stay is the the e-commerce world in its broadest sense. Yeah.
Yeah. So in a way, there's an opportunity there for you to play your part in that whole DTC scenario, but you're working with a on-trade partner to do it.
We're working with a partner, exactly. So that might be a corporate partner. It could be an on-trade partner. It could be an off-trade partner. So yes, and it's very early days. We only went live on Thursday last week with Ascot, yeah. So we're waiting with bated breath to see exactly how much it will capture the imagination. But the principle of an Ascot regular racegoer being able to enjoy some of the hospitality that they would have done at Ascot, watch the races on telly, maybe put the top hat on as well, and raise some money because all the proceeds are going to charity for this. So it's a nice way to do our bit. So yeah, but on a serious level, it's potentially an interesting model to put in front of customers who might be looking to diversify their offering.
Excellent. I mean, I suppose over the years, the drinks industry has always found ways to sort of like transform itself again and again and again. Every year we get duty increases. Every year there's so many different challenges throughout. Yeah. Have you been kind of like amazed by how quickly your own company or what you've seen in the industry over the last few months? I mean, what has gone on in terms of behind the scenes in the supply chain?
Yeah, I think it is amazing, and we are resilient as a bunch of people. I think you wrote some interesting articles relatively early D2C, and in some ways there's been a revolution in the wine industry in the UK over the last 20, certainly in my working lifetime. But we're still set in our ways, but we are very good at just moving it every year to cope with whatever's thrown at us. But I think probably the big thing is on a business level is social media, and I think we've been heading towards a time where connecting the consumer with a producer is becoming more and more important. People are looking for experience and they're looking for engagement and involvement. So I think that whole the revolution in social media as a means of communication, but it's also as a means of experience, or allowing consumers experience, is really fundamental. And I think that's definitely here to stay. And joined the wine trade 30 years. And we used to have wholesalers, and then just or we had importers, shippers. That's what you used to call them, and then the wholesaler, and then the end, then restaurants and retailers, and no one was jumping any of the, no shipper was selling direct, but all these barriers are broken down. So I think we have seen a few more barriers break down. Is it the end of the world if a wholesaler is supplying the public direct? It's not the end of the world. We will all have to adapt to that, and there's no right or wrong. There's no right or wrong here. It's just,
I think that's. I think also the consumer ultimately will decide, won't they? I mean, in terms of. As you say, social media has given them that power to engage, communicate, but also decide how they buy their goods. So
yes,
yeah.
And the irony for me for the whole thing is that actually what sells stuff is the personal contact. And that personal contact can now be done online. It can even be done, using software rather than rather than human interface. But I think we've had to revisit some of our key assumptions that people, how people will buy. And I think this pandemic and the lockdown has proven that people are willing to spend decent money without having tasted, but they're obviously relying on a gatekeeper of some sort, whether it's a retailer they trust, so it's an online retailer, or recommendation through social media. All of those things will play a role on it, and we've all got to adapt and embrace and use it.
Yeah. Can I just a couple more things? Can I ask you,
Yeah.
as a sort of a business leader, I mean, as somebody who's managing a company, I mean, what challenges have you personally had to have over the last 3 months, or what experience do you take out of all this?
It's bloody hard work. No, and it clearly as a business leader, and that goes down the ladder as well. Anyone who's responsible for the livelihoods of people, it's been a very serious time, and it's. I completely relate to everyone, actually. Whether it's our customers or our competitors. Having been with Hallgarten for 11 years, but Liberty and Berkman before that. But we've all spent our life building something, and seeing it disintegrate overnight is soul destroying. And that's the same for a restaurateur. And we do have some extremes in there with retailers going booming, and so. But so I guess there is an ongoing challenge for me in terms of managing that, trying to keep spirits up, and reassure the team. And we're not out of the woods yet, but my priority has been to make sure my team are safe and secure and paid. All of our actions very early on was all about controlling the cash and making sure that we were trading legally. So I think it has been a testing time, and it is exhausting. I think I said to you when we first started talking, I've been pretty well on in video calls since 7 o'clock this morning. And they are exhausting, but there's lots of good sides. I've been involved in team meetings across the whole business, and it's rare I get the opportunity to put my head into department on this scale. So I feel closer to my team than I have done for a long time, which is great.
And I guess in a sort of bizarre way, in your role, as you mentioned, you might think that you have a very secure team and everyone's all on top of what they're up to, but I suppose these sorts of situations stretch everyone to their limits, and I guess it's a kind of either reassuring or not reassuring, depending on how it all plays out. But I mean, I guess that must be a good thing for you as well, to be able to sort of have that.
It is, yeah. No, it's. I think the difficulty is getting the balance right. Clearly, we want to. My priority is to reassure and to protect. But we even now, as we approaching restaurants reopening, we're still when financially and from every other perspective, we're not out of the woods. We need to get back to making some money if we're going to secure the long-term future. So that weighs heavily. But I think there's a massive understanding, and if you ask me what are some of the highs of the last 3 months, apart from the obvious of selling lots more wine to retailers, it's actually been just how engaged our core restaurant customers have been, in terms of some have paid everything up to date, and where the people haven't been able to do that, then they've communicated, they've made some payments, they've done everything they can to reassure us. So so I think that is overwhelming, because they're going through exactly the same thing as us, and that scenario of us holding on to our cash and not paying our suppliers, so we're legal and we can pay our payroll, it's exact supplier not getting their money, it's us not getting their money. So
Yeah, understood.
so I think all round it has been quite enlightening and reassuring just how much we've all pulled together on it.
Yeah, and I guess it must be the same with your producers as well, because I mean, obviously this is happening all over the world, and everyone's going through exactly the same experience. So,
Yeah,
has been a similar scenario with producers.
yes, and again, mostly very long-term relationships, absolute trust in us. So, when we literally stopped making payments, and this sort of withdrew, and then obviously re-engaged and started making payments as and when money was coming in. It just depends on the balance between what they're selling in the export market particularly into retail around the world, and how reliant they are upon the domestic market. For our bigger suppliers, in general, there's enough of a balance there for them to be fine. For our smaller suppliers, there's certainly, and we've certainly prioritized paying them as and when they need to be. But if they're selling a lot of wine in, French supplier in the middle of Burgundy selling a lot of wine to restaurants, then they're in as much trouble as everyone else. And so of course we've prioritized working with them.
Yeah. And just finally, then, I mean, just when you look at, I know it's very hard, but sitting in the middle of all this, but I mean, if you look a year down the road, if you can, I mean, what do you think is going to happen? Do you see more consolidation, a bounce back, recovery? What would you?
It's a really good question. If we're talking a year away, and the assumption that there will be a vaccine available before that, then I'm an optimist. And if I wasn't an optimist, I probably wouldn't be doing what I'm doing now. I think whilst the on-trade technically, bear in mind that the on-trade has been going backwards as far as overall wine is concerned over the last few years. Whilst globally the on-trade may not recover to 2019 levels, I see absolutely no reason why we, as in Hallgarten, can't recover to 2019 levels and beyond. And I suppose the inference there is that, yes, I think there probably will be some consolidation across the industry. And I think that both in terms of the supply side, i.e. us, and on the restaurant side. And I think everyone will have an eye on the balance. As I said before, we've never tried to have a percentage of our business off trade or on trade. It's the numbers we give you are just a reflection of what they are. But I certainly think there is an imperative to work ever more closely with the independent sector, and to really build that dynamically. So how do we help them achieve their goals? And probably just being a little bit ever more selective about who we work with. And in general, we work for a long time, and we choose our customers fairly carefully. But that will be a part and parcel of the equation, I guess. Looking at the resilience of our customers, and actually customers, restaurants and retailers looking at our finances. How secure are we? Are we a good bet to work with? And so that's where we're very, very lucky to have entered this whole period in a position of immense strength. Really, we had a fantastic year last year. We have no borrowings. We don't have hungry shareholders. Obviously we have expectant shareholders, but they're family, and they take a very long-term view on here. So no one breathing down our necks. And we still don't have any borrowings, so we haven't taken any government loans out, and this may be the first year we don't make a profit. In fact, it's looking very likely we won't make a profit this year. But if we can look back and say that was the blip, that was the COVID-19, pandemic, then that's fine. I'd much rather come bouncing back next year, and we can just review it as a blip, and not make too many short-term cuts to just soften how bad this year looks. There's going to be a hit this year, then let's take it and make sure we're in the right shape in coming into 2021.
Thanks, Andrew. Thank you for being so honest and frank and uplifting as well at the end there as well. So thanks for your time, and if I can wish you and your team all the very best in the weeks to come.
Thank you. Well, let's talk again when maybe we can meet down the pub next time.